Well, since we're going to get started, I'm grateful to be here. My name is Francis McGovern, and I run a company called Q Legal, and I'm here with Lissa Goldberg, who is COO of Meta Media. And we're going to be talking about SEO and social media and tips that every law firm should do in 2021.
Absolutely, I agree. And not, I mean, you should start them now in 2021, but obviously keep building upon these in the future because SEO and social are not going anywhere.
That's very true.
Yes.
So our first slide, everybody probably recognizes the monopoly. You've got your website, your social media profiles, and they're all connected. And the more content you're adding, the more keywords that run through, whether it's your website, your blog, or your social media profiles, the more you do, the more you're going to get. So we kind of call that the monopoly effect, but it's just to kind of keep in mind in the back of your head that you're building these different properties. So of all the tips and things that you're thinking today, I want you to come away with this idea that the more you do, the more of an investment you're making in your SEO and your social media. So just come away with that as an idea.
Great.
And so we're going to start. I'm going to talk about SEO for the most part, and then Lissa is going to tackle the social media. And so we want to define what is SEO really. And so first off, SEO stands for search engine optimization, if you're unfamiliar with that. And it's very important for attorneys. And really what it is it's your planning from a very strategic level. Who do you want to bring in to your website? And you're determining that by certain keywords and language. So that's a big part of search engine optimization, is targeting a certain audience and then bringing them in to the website. And then on that next slide, you can see that people are not only using referrals, friends, and family, but they're also using search engines online. They're using review websites. So it's very important. And so, if someone asks me, well, why is SEO so important for attorneys? On that next slide, it's just real important for a couple of reasons, right? It's really about a couple of things, that you are talking about the type of client you want to bring in on your website. So you have this ability to really target those potential clients. But at the same time, SEO is so important for attorneys because you are reaching people at the moment when they are looking for an attorney. And that's when you want to get in front of them. So that's something as well to keep in mind, that you have the ability with the keywords that you use to get in front of someone right at the time they're looking for an attorney. And also it's very competitive. So they're in a state like Massachusetts, where we're based, you have a lot of attorneys and they're all competing for that first page in Google or in the social feed. So it's very important technique for people to use, for especially attorneys.
And then, where social media comes into this, social media really helps us improve and amplify your SEO efforts. There is an equivocal link between social shares and SEO. So the shares, likes, and comments that your social media posts receive are actually helping your SEO, because those, each time you get a share, a like, a comment on a social post, that pings to Google and other search engines that this is important content, this is relevant content. The keywords that you're using in your posts get boosted as well. And this will again help to rank your website higher in search engine rankings. And then this was just, I found this from this great article, but a really cool graphic about how social media supports SEO. And I think this really helps to illustrate the benefit here. First, you publish creative, inspiring, and informative content on your website, on your blog, etc. We then share your content on social media, and we're linking back to your website, of course. Your social media profile then connects followers with your content, while also generating traffic for your website. So again, every time you gain a follower, then more people are seeing your content, then more people are being linked back to your website, which again helps your SEO. You start to build a community around your brand. You start to not only, we always say this, number one rule for social media is it's not a bulletin board. You have to be social. That's why it's social media and not, bulletin media. So being social and having consistent interactions made through social media and having people comment and you comment back and it starts a conversation, this reinforces your brand reputation and again, helps boost your SEO. And then you're ranking higher in search engines like Google, and then users find you organically. So, and then the cycle continues. So I really just love this that shows how social media and having your social media posts being seen by more people and having engaging conversations on social media all helps actually drive home people organically finding you on Google and other search engines.
And that's a great slide, Lisa. And just to chime in on the SEO front, I've often heard clients tell me, oh, we did a blog post on this very specific topic, and then they might get an inquiry from someone on it, and they see the actual result of what they do. And I've also seen that, and I'm sure you have too, the more engagement a client puts into their social, the more activity, the more they'll show up, the more people will engage with their own content. So it works kind of both ways for SEO and social. So it's a great point.
Absolutely. I was actually speaking with a woman yesterday from a law firm, and we were talking about, she's like, well, I'm only posting once a month, but it's hard for me to want to post because I'm not really getting much engagement on my content. But I said, it's really like a chicken and an egg type of thing. Like you have to post more and put more time into it, and then the engagements and the traction and the impressions will come. So you do have to really put a little bit more effort into your social posts.
Right.
So just a little bit more on social and SEO, social sharing increases inbound links to your website. The more times you share content or your content is shared by others and you're linking back to your website in that content, again, it's increasing your traffic. For instance, if you wrote a blog post and published it to your website, and if it's shared, all of a sudden it's blowing up on socials, we would say on LinkedIn, everyone's sharing it, that blog post will now rank higher in SEO results. The blog post on your website will rank higher in SEO results because of being shared on social media, which is very powerful. We always recommend, amongst your social content, use it to amplify blog posts from your website, podcast videos. Francis and I were talking earlier about the power of videos, and video marketing is really here to stay. Infographics, just amplify content that gives advice and that's shareable, that doesn't just purely promote you and your firm. Target the right audience with your social posts that is likely to spend more time on your website once they get there. So think about who your target audience is and tailor your content accordingly. And this is another kind of little fun graphic I found, but it's a quote graphic. So not only does sharing content on your social media channels help engagement on those platforms, but it also helps bring visitors to your website, which boosts your site's visibility. And of course, by boosting your site's visibility and driving more people to your website and making your website a more popular, active place, search engines will rank that website higher as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so we're going to talk a little bit now about some of the building blocks to SEO. What are some tips and things you can do? So we just took a look. You can see up in the bar, it says view source, and there's HTTPS. That's important. It's just to make sure. One tip that most law firms have now, but every few sites I look at, I come across a site that's not secure. And so you want to make sure that you have an SSL certificate set up for your website so that when visitors come to it, it's secure, but also Google looks favorably upon that. So it's just a best practice you want to do. But getting into the nitty-gritty a little bit, what this page that we're looking at now, it's the source code for a website for a client that I have that does estate planning. It's a law firm in Dedham, Massachusetts, Samuel Sayward and Baylor. And so this is the snippet of code that tells the search engine what the homepage title tag is. And so if you're not familiar with what a title tag is, every web page essentially is like a document or a file. You have the ability to put
Yes.
keywords in. And so you want to tell people what your site is all about by using those keywords. And so on the next slide, you can see a example of this is how it shows up in the search results. So that area that's in purple, because it's the link's been visited, but estate planning attorneys, wills, trust, estates. And so there's a description there that's pulled in, but what we're trying to do is optimize for a wide range of different searches related to estate planning. So it might be someone needs an estate plan, they need a special needs trust, or they have an elder law or an elder care issue. So this firm wants to show up, and this is what happens when you put keywords into your title tag. And then I can show you an example a little bit. So this is the top of the homepage, what we might call the hero area, where we have three of the main attorneys, and mostly the woman on the left, Sue Sayward, and the woman on the right, Maria Baylor. They are the main principals of the firm, and they really believe in content. So I'm going to use them as a lot of examples throughout this, because, as an attorney, get that idea that content is really important. And so I mentioned your homepage and those homepage title tags. That's another important tip that you can use, that you want to get keywords in there that reflect the type of client that you want to get. So whether that's estate planning or family law, or let's say you're representing financial services advisors that have a lawsuit pending, you want to get those keywords into the tag. So that's a real important tip. And then you want to have content on the homepage. So on the next slide, you'll see that there's the latest news is pulled in. So they have questions and answers. They have messages about the community. They also talk about relevant things that are happening in the news and so on. As you go through and you look at the site in more detail on this next slide, you can see that we take a blog and estate planning steps to prioritize now. So the keywords are in the title of that blog, but they're also in the body copy. And you see that there's links on the right-hand side to some of the recent posts that they've done. But then there's a nice little video in there that one of the attorneys has done. And we'll talk more about that. But it's another piece of content that has keywords in it that's embedded within the site.
Love that.
And another tip to think about is, what are your SEO patterns? And so in working with attorneys for a number of years, we definitely can see that SEO breaks down into different distinct, predictable, and repeated patterns. So we'll see people search for attorney or lawyer. We'll see them search by practice area. We'll see them search by location. We'll also see them search by specific legal task. So you might think, oh, this search is too long or complex, but people search for very specific legal tasks or problems that they need solved. They also do look for superlatives. They might look for the best. They might look for the top ranked. When they're doing regional searches, they might look for someone in their community, or depending if it's maybe something related to the county or court, they might use county. They might search near me. So there's definitely patterns we see appear as we look in the search results. So it's something to pay attention to. And so, as you think about that, a takeaway is, and another tip, you're thinking about what are those patterns, but you're also thinking about filling those buckets or categories on your website. So as an attorney, if your practice area is responsible for one type of law, then you want to think, okay, when I do a blog post or a landing page, I need to fill that bucket. I need to fill that attorney bucket. I need to fill that bucket about that practice specific content. Let's say it's about family law, but I'm a real expert in prenuptial agreements. So I'm going to write about prenuptial, postnuptial agreements. I'm going to make sure I fill that bucket. And the same is true with the regional content and superlatives. So you want to use that as you are putting together your content calendar. What are the main words this is about? And then kind of stack that and stagger it with your different posts. And so another tip is to think and work backwards from what your potential client is searching for. And then you want to answer that question in a helpful and useful way and provide information so that they have not only a sense of your expertise, but that you're using certain, what we might call primary and secondary keywords related to that. And that you also want to kind of keep in line in the message where you're trying to reinforce your expertise, but you're trying to kind of gain their trust. So sometimes that could be you're answering questions in an FAQ, or you're writing about a particular scenario that a client might encounter. So work backwards from what the client wants.
I love this tip from Francis. I completely agree with it. And I think, there's going to be a lot of content from your website or your blog that you're sharing to social, but there is going to be some social specific content as well. And I completely agree that you should work back from the client, give advice, show value, and think about what your client would want to learn about.
Right. And one search, this firm I mentioned is in Dedham, but an important search for them is Dedham estate planning lawyer. And so this is a screenshot of the Google search results. And so they'll show up in what we might call the map listing, where it's the place within Google, or what you might call the Google My Business listing now. It's changed from, used to be Google Places, Google Local, that's this. Now it's Google My Business. And it's important to pay attention to that, because not only can clients give you great reviews, but a client could give you a negative review as well. So you want to make sure you are utilizing that and leveraging that power, because it does help you in search results. So, I've seen clients use things where a client has a positive experience, an attorney has, someone has a positive experience with an attorney, and they reach out to them personally and say, hey, we're so glad. Would you be willing to give us a review? And you send them a link to your Google My Business page. And it's a great way to do it. You're not necessarily hitting them over the head, but it's something you're thinking about in terms of, because you want to capture that moment when the client is raving about you.
Absolutely.
And so this is an example of some of the reviews they're pulled in, and it's just a great resource for clients, because it's usually harder to manipulate those reviews, right? And people trust them, and they'll take a look at them. So it does help you in search results.
I feel like even more so, recently for all industries, Google reviews are really reigning king over like Yelp or something like that. I think people are really looking to trust Google reviews.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And so another tip is your bio. I mean, I have clients that, update their bio. It feels like they're emailing me every 2 weeks about their bio, about something they're doing, because they're doing a lot of things. And, that's great. I love that, because not only does it give their clients a picture of what they can do, but it also helps update their website. And so here's an example. This is Sue Sayward's bio. And so in her bio, we're using keywords. We're talking about estate planning and elder law, but we're also talking that she's a top rank attorney. And so we're using some of those superlatives. We're using Massachusetts in there as well. So it's really important. And one tip for you to take away is, if you're going to do anything, you might walk away from the webinar and say, you know what, that's great. I learned a lot of stuff, but I'm a little overwhelmed. One thing you can do as an attorney is go and rework your bio. Think about what are the terms that someone might use to search and then hire you. and work those into your bio. Update it with any of things like super lawyers or any accolades that you've received. And, make sure that's in there. Or if you've written something, a blog post, put a link in there to your blog post and so forth. So just some tips there with your bio.
I love that tip. And right after you update your bio on your website, take that information and the drive you have, and let's optimize your LinkedIn profile as well. Optimizing your LinkedIn profile will not only help you just look better on LinkedIn for anyone who happens to come across your page, or if someone is about to meet with you, is thinking about meeting with you, or just did, and they want to connect with you. So not only will you look more professional and polished, but you'll also actually improve your SEO rankings when you update your LinkedIn page. So a little bit more on this and some tips. I put me and Francis are in there. Using the right profile photo. This is an interesting fact I came across. Your face should actually take up 60%. So you'll see mine's, a little zoomed out. I should probably zoom in. Francis looks great. Like he has 60% of his face there in his profile. We always say that, I've done consultations with a lot of lawyers and looking at their personal LinkedIn profiles. And a lot of times that cover photo is the background photo, the photo behind your profile image. And they'll just be blank, and we really want to use that to stand out, be memorable, tell more about who you are and what your mission is. For me, I have Meta Media. We're very bold with our colors. And I think it really just, orange is supposed to make you feel happy. And that's why I have that in there along with the logo. I love Francis's photo on the lake. Either it was that fishing or kayaking. It just really you get to know him right away with that cover photo. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
You also, oh, go ahead, Francis. What are you doing there?
Story. I think I like that photo because that's with my youngest son. We're canoeing on the river and we were fishing, and he liked to call it idiot fishing because we would never catch anything. And I think that time I took the picture, I actually knocked the rod into the water.
Oh my God.
So yeah, but anyway, sorry. But
And
it's
I
a
like
little
that.
bit, it's a little bit of personality, right?
Yeah.
And then I could tell that story, and then.
Exactly. It's a conversation starter.
Yes.
Absolutely. I agree. Another tip is to, you could amplify and add keywords into your headline. So not just saying your title, which, that works as well, but even adding to that. So I have like COO at Meta Media, social media marketing consultant. See how I put that in addition to my actual title and business. Adding that in will help you rank when people are searching on LinkedIn or searching on Google. And I wrote proud owner of a woman-owned agency because I am. Also with your LinkedIn, you'll see in your profile, you're able to upload PDFs and certain materials. So just as Francis was saying, if you recently wrote a blog post, that you should link that to your attorney bio on the website. Same thing, upload any supportive presentations, awards, videos, documents, etc. to your LinkedIn. Just really kind of add some more of that thought leadership in there. And you can also go through and just as, Francis did also say, after you have a positive relationship with someone, kind of following up and asking them for a Google review. You also can request recommendations from colleagues, customers, clients, etc. on LinkedIn. And those recommendations will show up on your LinkedIn page as well. So it helps add credibility, thought leadership, and will help with your rankings as well. Oh, I hear a dog. So cute.
Okay. I think that's our dog. Sorry.
Oh.
She loves SEO, so she
loves it too.
Google search results.
I think this one, yeah, no problem. You're fine. My dog, I mean, you never know. She's sleeping now, but at any moment she can literally spring to life. So,
yeah.
So let's hope she doesn't. Hope there's no mailman or something. Which is, it's a stereotype or whatever, but she really does it. Some other LinkedIn SEO tips to help drive more keywords to your LinkedIn page and drive more views to your LinkedIn page, and then therefore driving more views to your website as well. But publishing articles, that's something you can do on LinkedIn. A lot of people don't know about this. Not only can you publish posts, like you could do a social media post, but you also can write blog posts and write articles on LinkedIn. Usually what I say is just, you don't have to write a LinkedIn specific blog post. Take a blog post from your website or a recent newsletter and just cross promote it and publish either the entire blog post to your LinkedIn, or you could publish an excerpt and say, read the rest on my website. And then it's kind of clickbaity in a good way. I publish articles for, to help with thought leadership, support your blog content, and inbound traffic. Use these articles to start and grow conversations. We're talking about being social on social media and the importance of that, not only for new leads, but for SEO and impressions. So here's an example below. A woman I work with, Karen Firestone. She is the co-founder of Aureus Asset Management, which is an asset management company in downtown Boston, but she also does a lot for her personal presence, and she's a CNBC contributor and author. So she wrote like an op-ed about working moms in finance, and we just got such amazing feedback from both men and women on this, and we really were able to start conversations, and that will help the post rank even higher. On LinkedIn, you can also join groups. There are groups that you can search for, and kind of maybe you publish a blog post in there, and share relevant materials. Post on, this is obviously the number one even tip, is posting on LinkedIn consistently. Like I said, I did a consult with a woman yesterday who's she was amazing, but they're posting once a month. You need to really once a week at least, we would say, if not really 3 times a week is like more of a sweet spot. And then on your LinkedIn profile for both your firm and your personal LinkedIn profile, you can customize your URL. So it's not just like some long, confusing URL. You can customize it. And not only can you make it your name or your firm's name, you could add keywords into your URL, which I think is a great SEO tip. And doing this will help your LinkedIn page rank higher in organic search results. So I just think those are all really vital LinkedIn tips.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about keywords in this slide, but I just want to make a point about what Lisa was saying. And as an attorney, right, and a lot of the attorneys we work with are partners in a firm, and they they're owners, they have a stake, right, and they stand for something. There's a reason why they've got involved in the law. And just hearing Lisa talk about like the fact that she's proud to be in a woman-owned business, and that she works with women entrepreneurs, and she's promoting them and talking about the challenges that they're facing. It not only makes her more relevant, but it adds a level of authenticity, right? So think about that. Like, what are the key things what are your whys, right? Why are you doing this? And factor that into your keyword research, your intelligence, as you're putting together your words. And this slide that we're talking about now is talking a little bit about this concept of the long tail, right? So what are the search terms that people might use to find you? And they might look for, if you're a divorce attorney, they might look for best divorce lawyer in Boston. But it's not just that. It might be that they're looking for a very specific task. They might be looking for high net worth divorce attorney. How do I freeze cryptocurrency assets? And very specific things that speak to an audience. So you want to pay attention when you're thinking about the search terms you use, and go as granular as you can, because that's important in terms of the more specific a search is, and the more relevant it is, it has a high lead value, and you want to make sure that you factor that in to the content and the social media marketing that you're doing. And this is just a quick glimpse of actual search results that are showing up for that client, Samuel Sayward and Baylor. And you can see that they're an estate planning firm, but they are being found on these terms. People are visiting their website looking for information about irrevocable trusts. What are the advantages and disadvantages? What's a living trust? And so issues with assets. So these are questions that people are asking, and then the firm is answering them on the website, and they're bringing people to the website through Google. So it's important to know that, even if your site receives, 50 visits or 100 visits a month, you can, through SEO and good social media practices, you could get up to where your firm is getting thousands of visits a month from Google. And those are organic searches that you're not necessarily paying for. You're investing, paid search is fine, and there's a science to it, but you want to make a long-term investment in your site. It's really key. And so that's another tip is get on Google Search Console. If you're not, you may have heard of Google Analytics, but Google Search Console allows you to drill down and actually see not only who's clicking on your website, what they're searching for, but where you're positioning in that Google search. So it gives you the sense of there's low-hanging fruit that you can, make some adjustments for. And like, for example, if you're on page 2 on a certain search, adding a few blog pages or a few landing pages might help boost you on that and make you more relevant and get you on that first page. And so I've got a couple of content specific examples that I'll go through quickly. You may have heard of the Secure Act. This was a law that was passed, I think a couple of years, year and a half or so back, and it was all about disbursements for 401k plans and the rules regarding that. And so this firm wanted to get out in front of that. They had a blog post. They're using keywords on that next page. There's another, this is an example. They showed up for the search, basically. So you can see they came up, if you're looking for a Massachusetts Secure Act attorney, and they show up there with some other broader national sites, but then there's a local estate planning firm that does really well, and everybody, Harry Margolis, everybody knows. So it's important to take your topic, carve out those keywords, and then implement them on your site. And here's an example. It's a little bit hard to read, but he sketched out his will, and he said, in case I die in this mess, I leave all to the wife. And so I think it's a great example of a piece of content that, as an attorney, you can use to help tell your story, right? So I didn't know before this really about holographic wills, and I thought, hey, that's interesting. But it's a great piece of content. You can add in information about wills, or about writing a will, or decisions around that. So always be creative. And I think that's another tip, another takeaway, is be creative as possible. How can you tell the story of your practice and the creative problems that you solve for your clients? And so be as creative as possible, because it's more compelling and more interesting.
Okay, so I take myself off mute. Yes, and I love that example, Francis. I remember you told me that story. I think it's very interesting. But we're just kind of hammering home the social media stream here. It's your attorney's LinkedIn pages, and those link back to the firm's LinkedIn page, or those link directly to the bio page, and then that links back to your website. So it does show how everything we're doing here, both your attorney's LinkedIn pages and also your firm's LinkedIn page, all help drive traffic back to your website. But really, if you're going to drive traffic back to your website, like I was saying before, consistency is key. You need a consistent posting, so more than once a month, and keep it consistent so people know what to expect from you. We really do like 3 times a week, but if you could only fit in 2, it's better than nothing. But not only consistent frequency of posts, but also consistent aesthetic and consistent voice. So in social, that means all of your if you post anything with graphics or anything with color or font on it, keep that consistent. Really, if possible, keep that, the same as your website's branding, as your logo, as your font, as your colors, so that it's consistent and people can see a post and say, oh, I know that firm right away without having to read the account is coming from. And also keep up a consistent voice. So what is your voice as a law firm? Like, what is your personality on social media? What words do you use? What phrases do you use? Keep that consistent so that you really do have an authentic persona on social media. All of that consistency will help you build your credibility, brand trust, and reputation online. And for us, a really great way to ensure you're staying consistent with social media, and that you're also hitting all of your various content pillars, making sure to promote blog posts, upcoming events, just fit it all in on social, is creating a content calendar. This is something that can be very easily done in a spreadsheet, whether it's Excel or Google, or whatever. Even if you want to do it on paper, like, go for it. We keep it very, very high level. So really it's the date and then the general topic that you're going to post about that day. But we recommend doing this, at least a 1 week prior to the month starting and just kind of mapping out your content for the month. So again, not only will this ensure that you're consistently posting and that you're kind of meeting your post frequency quota, but they're also able to touch on all the different aspects that you want to be promoting on social.
Yeah, and I would just to highlight, I think
Yes.
Lisa, that was great what you said, but just to highlight, consistency is key, and it's thought leadership, because
Yep.
people see you post things, and then when an issue comes up, you're upper mind because you've been reinforcing your expertise. So I
Absolutely.
think that's a great point.
Yeah. The more you get in front of people, the more that they'll think of you when something comes up.
Right.
And then when it comes to populating your social media stream and what do I put out there, we really love the 80-20 rule. This honestly goes across all industries. But what do you populate your stream with? Create purposeful and useful content. Like we were saying all throughout this webinar, attorney tips, profiles, featured cases, firm or industry news, advice, as much as you can give, definitions or what do I do next, or weighing in on certain updates, just really showing yourselves as thought leaders. Push your blog content, of course, show expertise in your specific niche. And that should be 80% of your content. And then that 20% or even less, really, that's where if you're going to do any sort of sales driven content or try to, get, and, put in a call to action or something like that, that's where you could do that. But really most of your content, especially as lawyers, I would think is a lot of thought leadership and building up your brand on social media. So you are top of mind. So why do you create content that's engaging? Why can't I just post updates, just quickly on social media? Why isn't that enough? Why does my content have to be thoughtful and engaging? Lisa, why you make me spend so much time on it? There's a lot of good reasons, engaging content, and content that your audience, your target audience will want to engage with. It creates a community. It will grow your audience, because if you're creating content that people actually care about, then they'll follow you. No one's going to follow you if they don't care about your content. It's just the way it is. Unless they work for you or, they're your mom. They're not going to follow you if the content is not engaging and it doesn't have use to them. Engaging content will reach more of your audience organically. As you may or may not know, every social media channel, including LinkedIn, when someone scrolls through their feed of updates of people and businesses that they're following, it's not chronological. It would make my job a lot easier if it was. It's all an algorithm. So everything that you're being served in your LinkedIn feed, it's just like SEO, it's just like Google. You don't see everything, chronologically. You see the most relevant results and the most engaging results. So the more your content is engaged with, the more also your content will be shown to people who actually follow you on LinkedIn. It's the difference of, maybe you have 1,000 people who follow your firm's LinkedIn page, and you post something, but it's very little engagement, and LinkedIn's already decided like this is a dead page. No one cares about their content, and maybe 10 people see it, what a bummer is that you spent all this time creating content and 10 people see it. Or you take that little bit of extra time to make engaging content consistently, and maybe it's more than 50% of your audience sees your content. And then not only that is 50% of your audience seeing your content, but if your audience shares your content, then everyone who follows them can also see your content. So it really does help grow your audience, make new connections. It's almost, we call it social media word of mouth, when someone shares a piece of your content. So again, I'll help with your visibility. Good content also makes you look good. It just helps your reputation in front of peers, competitors, target clients. The more engagement you get on a piece of content, like this example I've included on the right, that has 125 reactions, 15 comments, and 33 shares. Of course, it's LinkedIn, but Facebook, but it's still, I think, a really good example of engaging piece of content. 33 shares is insane. But the more engagement you get, the higher ranking you'll be in social algorithms, and then it could all lead back to your SEO algorithm. And the more views on the content, obviously, the more clicks back to your website. If you're including a link back to your website, whether it's a blog or something else, or attorney profile in that social media post, well, the more people who see the social media post, the more people who will click back to your website. So it's really just all the benefits. A lot of people say how can I create good looking content? I don't have an in-house creative team. What do I do? And some simple tips that we like to give are using free tools like Canva, which is a website. You just go to canva.com. You could pay for a paid one, which is relatively cheap, the membership, but you also could use it for free. Go in there and you can search templates. Like you could probably search employee profile or tip or blog post share, and they will actually already have pre-made graphic design templates that you can just pop in your logo to, pop in your brand colors if you have them, and then you're making yourself a template where every time I highlight an attorney, every time I promote a piece of advice, every time I promote an accolade or a panel we're speaking on or a conference that we're attending, I could just sub in the details every time. Ultimately, it will save you time, and it'll also look really good and helps with consistency.
Yeah.
Other ways to do engaging content, faces always stand out on social media. I know there's sometimes you just don't have a picture of an attorney, or you want to use just a featured image from your blog post, but the more you can put faces on social, the better. Again, it's social media. Facebook was so popular for a reason. So tap into trending hashtags and national days in your content if possible. So again, this example on the right from one of our law firms, Sunstein and intellectual property firm downtown, is they tap into International Women's Day a couple of months ago, and we used that hashtag, and it kind of just helped to ground our content. And you also can use websites like, oh, sorry, Francis, do you want to add something to that?
I just wanted to
Yeah,
comment
go
to
ahead.
say how good that looks,
Oh,
right?
thank you.
But also at the same time, like what looks good about it is you can see smiling faces, right? They look approachable. Part of half the battle, right? Everybody wants to look good, right? But it's more than that. I think as attorneys, you are challenged with this process of showcasing that you're an expert and that you're capable, but at the same time, you can help people and you want to connect with them, right? So it's all this challenge that has to take place, whether it's the look of your social post that looks okay, that looks sophisticated, that looks well done. I want to talk to them, right? It's an impression and it happens over time. So I just wanted to say that looked good, but that you're walking the talk, right? Because you're doing that for clients. So that looks great.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with that. That's a great point. The last tip I have, just to help your content be seen more people, LinkedIn does support hashtagging, and I think they want you to hashtag. So you can use websites like free websites like Right Tag. And you can basically type in what you do, your industry or niche, and they'll actually suggest some hashtags that you can find that you can incorporate into your social media posts. But I agree with, our friends was saying too with this graphic here on the right, is if you're, we call it thumb stopping content, right? Like if you're constantly just like, if you're on LinkedIn after work, some people do it on the mobile app and you're scrolling. A lot of times we get like scroll fatigue and you just zone out. You need something that's going to make your thumb stop and you want to read more. And I feel like seeing smiling, approachable faces really would help you do that. So.
Absolutely. And so I want to give an example. Alyssa had mentioned, your personality on LinkedIn. And so this is an attorney that's been a longtime client, Jonathan Fields at a family law firm that does both family law and estate planning. And John does family law, and he does some mediations as well. A lot of storytelling that you can do. Not only can you post articles about divorce and marriage and love and sort of all kinds of interesting issues like mental health or sex. So you can post really about everything, right? And under that guy. So it's interesting, and he likes. We help him with his social media, and he likes articles that are interesting, but that talk about his practice. And that, like Lisa had mentioned, they're thumb stopping, and I love that word, right?
Mhm.
Are people going to stop and look at that? And yes. And so I wanted to showcase his profile a little bit and just use him in a couple of quick examples as we kind of wind up the webinar. But when we started with him, he had, maybe a few hundred followers on LinkedIn. And, if you go on to the next slide, you can see that we've worked with him to kind of build up and showcase his knowledge. And whenever I mention John to people, they say, oh, I love his social media. And so he's not only really engaged at posting, but also managing his connections and his interactions. And so I want to showcase a couple of things that, we mentioned consistency. John posts a couple of times a day on his LinkedIn. And so that's really, it's a lot maybe to most attorneys, but some people even post more than that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not always things that are that he's done, but it's an interesting article or something to that effect. And so I want to showcase a little bit on, his amount of followers, right? Because he's seen some growth over the years. On this next slide, I think this was back in 2017.
Right.
That his followers grew to around 5,000, and then fast forward to
Incredible.
in October, last time we measured it, there's 15,000 followers. And so part of that is consistency and posting on a regular basis. And so social media is important. It not only helps with your SEO, but social media, SEO, and PR kind of all combine. And I want to maybe show that a little bit on some of these next slides. The pandemic started. This is John's wife, Erica, and she just took it upon herself in a very creative way to do a video about what life was like at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was a very funny video and she gave a plug for their firm, Fields and Dennis, at the end of the video. And so we worked with John to kind of post it and get it out there. And, it got a good amount of likes and then a lot of comments. And it's something that he has on his profile that he can showcase, right, in a way, because it's interesting and it's funny. So you just never know what is there or what resource, whether it's something you can do as an attorney or someone that's connected to your firm can help you with. And so one of the things we've done with our clients before is promote some of the in-person events. So I mentioned my other client, Samuel Shayward and Baylor. They have a lot of in-person events that now are webinars because of the pandemic, although that might pick up again.
Yeah.
And so, webinars are great because you can not only use them to connect with people online, but you can record it and use it as video. And video has been a real key for some clients. And I'll give an example on a few of the subsequent slides now. Back at the beginning of the pandemic, I had been saying, to try to do some video. And part of the reason I do that, and I think this is one of the reasons, it's like I'm telling people, think about why you're an attorney. Think about what's important about the law. And I think as marketers, we need to think about why we work in marketing, right? And why we like maybe search or why we like social. And Alyssa's mentioned a few of those things. But one of the reasons I like working with attorneys is because they are funny and they're smart. And Sue and Maria, who are pictured both in these videos, are great. And they not only get content, but they're fun to work with, and they're funny, and they're dynamic on video. And so they decided, they said, okay, Francis, we're going to take this suggestion and we're going to do video. And then, so I think it was in March, they put out a video every day and we emailed it out to their list.
Wow.
For that month. And that was great. People loved it. They loved getting information about estate planning topics in the pandemic. And so now what they do is they send out a weekly email with a video embedded in it. And I can show some statistics about that. Just in the last month, they've gotten, almost 700 video views, right? And, which is great. And on the next slide, you can see the lifetime of, you can see at the beginning of the graphic there on the spike was March of last year in April. And when they sent out something every day, and then you can see that spike kind of comes every week, but they've had almost, 12,000 views in the year or so since we started doing these videos. And so just think about that for your firm. What difference would that make, not only in terms of your content archive, because we take the content, we post it to the website, we post it to social media, we email it out, and we're putting it on a YouTube channel. So it's building a repository. Every one of those videos is tagged. So just think about all that knowledge you have as an attorney, and don't think, I need to get everything out there. Just think a little bit every day, a little bit, whether it's, I'm going to write down my notes and then I'm going to spend a half an hour on Fridays or a day of the week that you have time, and you block out that time and you create. And so it's another tip is, I can't stress enough, use video. It's going to make a real difference when people are looking, do I call this attorney? Do I call that attorney? Well, I watched their video. They seem nice. They seem like they'd understand, or they seem aggressive, or they seem really intelligent, or they wrote this article about this, so they get what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I love this. And I also feel like there are a lot of people who are intimidated by video because they think it has to be perfect. They have to get everything in one take, that it has to be long and polished and edited. And I just feel like that's really not true. Like the videos you showed in like these, like that's just kind of almost like on the left, it's almost like a selfie video and it looks great, and that's what people are looking for, is authenticity. It doesn't have to be, it's probably better off, if it's not this crazy production.
Right. It doesn't have to be super highly produced. I mean, it's great to have a marketing video. We help with that, but it's also great to be in charge of that yourself, right? Like you can own that as an attorney. You can go to law school, you can practice law, you can do a video. There's no, it's you can definitely do it. And so I'll go through these last couple of slides quick, but I mentioned how SEO and PR and social media converge. If you go on to that, I think the next slide. Yeah. So this is another example with Jonathan Fields. So he has a great PR person, Ellen Kiley, who is based in the Boston area, and we do some collaboration with her on PR. And one time we had given a link or posted a link to an article about cryptocurrency and divorce. And it was picked up by a local journalist that interviewed John. And then John was featured in an interview. We featured that on the website. I think Ellen got him more interviews. We also posted an article that he wrote about in Lawyers Weekly. He gave a talk, or was invited to give a talk at a legal conference about this topic, and then he's written the book on it so far with another attorney, all about cryptocurrency and what are the guidelines and concerns for attorneys. And so it all kind of comes together. What you post can create an opportunity for you to be interviewed. That can create more content. That can create a way to reinforce your expertise. So it's all connected back to that monopoly effect idea, that everything you do can improve everything across the board. So more is better, but consistency is key.
Absolutely.
And so this is just a showcase of, that he shows up for that search term, because it kind of all relates together. And so I mentioned quickly, like analytics and Search Console, those are important things. It's a great way to evaluate this and watch your traffic grow over time as you do more and more on your website. And so we talked about some quick tips that you could do. There's homepage text and title tag, post a blog or an article, or even a video. Don't be intimidated, and try to go reach out and make a new connection and review and update all your profiles, not only on your law firm site, but then also on important directories like a Super Lawyers or Abo and so forth. And so just day to day, I mean, I know Lisa might have some thoughts about hashtags and following those, but whatever you're doing on the SEO front has a complement on the social media front.
Yep.
So just kind of keep that in mind and think, you know what's the life of this piece of content? How can I work keywords into it? How can I leverage it for a video, leverage it for a social post? So it's all kind of connected. So think about that connected ecosystem of your content in your marketing.
I totally agree. And even just 15 minutes a day on LinkedIn, just going through and engaging with some people and starting conversations, even if you've already scheduled a lot of your content out, going through engaging with people, even if you're scrolling through your feed and you see something from a colleague or from a publication you follow, you could share that on LinkedIn and add maybe a sentence or two of your take on it or something. And that could be very quick, but still helps populate your feed with content.
Right.
Great. So we've reached the end of our presentation. Thank you everyone for staying with us. Let's see, I'll open up the Q&A box. I think I have to stop sharing my screen though. And see if anyone has any questions before we log off. Let's see. I know we tackled a lot today, of course. So let me just share my screen one more time and bring back the our contact information in case you need that. Let's see. Where did I put it? There it is. So I'll just put up our contact info and you can write it down, and you could also feel free to email us if you'd like the recording of this presentation to use at a later time or to reference at a later time, or give us a call.
Yeah. Well, this was great. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. I think there's so much for people to do in attorneys to focus on. So hopefully we've given some good tips for everyone. So thank you everyone for joining us.
I agree. Thank you, everyone.